Welcome to Jazz Time. Jazz Time is an online store that buys, sells, and trades authentic luxury watches. We make these videos so our customers can easily choose the best watch for themselves in the comfort of their own home. If you like this watch, click on the link in the description below to buy it at the lowest price anywhere online. Today, I'm going to be reviewing the Rolex Deepsea Challenge 50mm in titanium, reference 126067. I'm going to talk to you about the bezel, the dial, the case, the movement, give you a little bit of background, try it on, and give you my thoughts. So, let's start. This is the Rolex Deepsea Challenge, and it is the largest watch that Rolex makes, 50mm. And to give you some reference, before this, the largest watch that Rolex made was the Rolex Deepsea, and that was only 44mm, and this is 50, which, is only 6mm larger, but that's actually a 12% larger than its predecessor, the Deepsea, which was a very large watch. And when you see it on my wrist, you're going to realize, and when I bring this other watch in for comparison shortly, you'll see why it's a very big watch. Now, let's start. This is the Deepsea Challenge, and I told you I was going to give you a little history. Rolex came out with the Deepsea, the regular Deepsea, back in approximately 2010. And that Deepsea, when it hit the market, it was a spin-off of the Sea Dweller. It was the first time that Rolex ever made a very large watch, large at the time being 44mm. Before that, all the Rolex sports watches were around 40mm. The Deepsea coming in at 44 was revolutionary, at least for Rolex. Other brands were making large watches, but Rolex, which is a very conservative brand, making a 44mm was really wow. And at the time, that was really the largest. Now, fast forward to 2022, approximately 10 years and a change later, Rolex comes out with the Deepsea Challenge, and that is its largest watch at 50mm. And not everybody is going to be able to wear this, and I'm going to tell you at the end of the video who I think could be wearing this, so stick around. Alright, now the Deepsea watch was originally designed because Rolex has a long history for designing watches that are waterproof. Their Oyster watch was one of the first waterproof watches with a screw-down crown and caseback. They have a very long history and an obsession almost with making sure that their watches stay waterproof. And not only did Rolex back in around the early 50s, in 1952 or something around there, come out with their, I think maybe 1950. They came out with the Rolex Submariner, which was one of the first diving watches, probably credited with being the first diving watch, at least that most people will know of. I'm sure there was one or two before that, but most people think that the first diving watch was the Rolex Submariner. And when that came out, it was revolutionary. It was massive, and it stuck around until the Sea Dweller came out, which was just a beefed up version of the Submariner, which could go, I think instead of 100 meters, it could go, I don't know, I'm not sure, but it was a lot more meters. It doesn't really matter because it was just deeper. The Sea Dweller, all it did was just looked like the Submariner, but a little bit thicker. The caseback looked thicker, the crystal looked thicker, and it was just a thicker watch in general. And that one came out, and it lasted, I want to say, somewhere around 40 years until approximately 2010, when the Sea Dweller, a new version, came out, which was a Deepsea. And the Deepsea came out, it could go all the way down to 4,000 meters. Now, just to give you some reference on that, for those people who don't know, the deepest point on Earth is the Mariana Trench. Did I say that right? Yeah, the Mariana Trench, and it is 10,916 meters deep. Let's just basically say it's 11,000 meters, okay? Or 35,000 feet. Now, that is super deep. It is the deepest part on the entire Earth. You cannot go any deeper than that, at least via the ocean. And Rolex, for whatever reason, has this massive obsession with making sure that their watch can stay completely waterproof up to that point. So they've developed a few watches. They developed the Rolex Deepsea Special, which was like a prototype, and it had this gigantic crystal that was to prevent it from flooding and becoming not watertight. And then they developed the Deep Sea Special 1, 2, and 3. And then they also developed a prototype for the James Cameron that he strapped to the outside of his, I guess, the device that he took all the way down the Mariana Trench. And they wanted to see if the watch was still functioning. So Rolex made it out of steel at the time, and it went all the way down to 11,000 meters. It came back up, and it had no issue. But they couldn't make a commercial version out of it because this watch was just made of steel, and it was super heavy. So it took them a few years, but they finally figured out how to make that watch out of titanium. So it weighs around 250 grams, which if it wasn't steel, it would weigh about 350 grams, which is quite a bit more. It's like 30% more. It was almost unwearable. 350 grams is a lot. If you take it by comparison, the Submariner was like, I think I would say is like 70 grams or something, and a gold watch is usually like 120 or 115. This one is 250, so double that of a gold watch, probably closer to like a platinum and a half watch, but it's a lot bigger. It looks like it would be super, super heavy, but it being titanium, it's not as heavy as you think. Okay, so anyways, so the background on this is, as I said, was that Rolex was continuing to make a watertight watch that was going from the Submariner to the Sea Dweller. I guess the Sea Dweller in 1967 and the Deep Sea in 2008, now that I'm actually looking it up. But anyways, they kept on producing these different versions of it until finally Rolex has developed a commercial version of a watch that can literally go down to the bottom of the ocean, the deepest part of the ocean. No other brand. Actually, I take it back. I think Omega claims that, but they don't really have a commercial version that can actually do that. So really, only Rolex has a watch made commercially, not a prototype, not a one-off, but an actually commercially made watch that you can, I think you could just go out and buy it. And by the way, if you do want to buy it, go to jazztime.com or click the link in the description below. That is why we make these videos, guys. So please watch our video and buy it from us and not somebody else. So Rolex makes this Deep Sea Challenge. That is the first commercial watch that can go all the way down to the bottom of the deepest part of the ocean, the Mariana Trench. That is cool. And they're the first. Can I also remind you that Rolex was also the first watch to make it to the highest part of the Earth, Mount Everest. That's the highest part of the Earth. And Hillary, Tenzing, one of them was wearing the Rolex Explorer, and that's where it got its name. And so Rolex can now claim that it's the watch that can make. They were the first watch to make it to the highest point on Earth, and they were also the first watch to make it to the bottom of the Earth. So, wow! Rolex is the #1 best-selling watch in the world. Nobody beats them, and they've accomplished these great feats, which is quite remarkable. Okay, so that is the little history behind this watch and why they wanted to do it. I'm guessing that they wanted to be the first in everything, so there you go. They have succeeded in that. That's the history. Now, I guess let's talk about the watch itself, the case. The case is made of titanium. It's also a first time that Rolex has made their entire case of titanium. Now, they are making one right now. It's called the Yachtmaster 42, which is also made of titanium. It's much smaller and thinner. This watch, as I told you, the diameter is going to be from the 4 o'clock to the 2 o'clock across the bezel. The largest part is 50 millimeters. However, if you actually measure from lug to lug, that means going from the very top, going from the 12 to the 6, the bottom, that is actually 60 millimeters. Now, to give you some frame of reference on that, a Richard Mille, a very large watch as well, is 50 millimeters on one of their largest watches from 12 to 6. It's about 50 millimeters. That's pretty dang large. And so this one, being 60 millimeters, is even bigger than that. Now, the reason being that they had to do it this way, well, if you look at the Deep Sea, which goes to 4,000 meters, this one goes to 11,000. So if the deep sea challenge goes 3 times further, basically, than the deep sea, you're going to have to make the case bigger. And that's obviously what they did. And I think there was also part of a commercial twist to it. Rolex wants to make a watch that's very big for those people who are very big. And so if you're a very big guy, well, everything is relative. A 44mm watch might actually not look that big on you because you're a huge guy. So I've actually had customers who've had to put like 2 or so links on their deep sea because it wasn't big enough. So this deep sea challenge would probably be great for them. In fact, I might even give him a call after I finish this video and try to sell him this watch. So yeah, there are people who are quite large. I would say if you're greater than 200 pounds, well, definitely greater than 200 pounds. If I would probably say high 200 pounds, like Brock Lesnar or something would wear this watch. And as you are, well, God bless you, Rolex has made you a watch that is perfect for you, and it's called the Deep Sea Challenge. And if you want to buy it, go to jazztime.com to buy it at the lowest price anywhere online. Okay, so that is the case. Now, Rolex did make it out of titanium, and that's a very difficult material to work with. It's about 30 to 40% lighter than steel, but it's very difficult to work with, and it's very, very strong. So it has some very good qualities in it being strong and light, stronger and lighter than steel, but very difficult to work with, as you could imagine. But that makes it a very good material to use for a watch that can go to the bottom of the ocean and withstand that extreme pressure. Now, it's a monoblock middle case with a screw-down caseback and winding crown. Rolex has made a special ring lock system with a nitrogen alloy steel ring and helium escape valve that you can see on the side. I don't know exactly how that works, but as you go down and when you come up, the helium needs to come out from the side of the case. Something along those lines. That is why they have these things. Now, I don't know the details because I'm not a science nerd, but that's what it does. Okay, so that's the case. No, actually, there is one more thing I want to bring to you about this case. If you look at the side of the case, it has what Rolex calls a chamfered edge, or a beveled edge, or kind of just not one edge that just goes straight down. Now, if you look at these lugs, you see it's high polish on the chamfered edge. And you know what? This is the only watch in their current lineup I can think of that actually does this. Rolex used to do this on some of their other watches. They put the chamfered edge and then they high polished it, which takes a lot of work because that high polish on that very skinny part of the watch, and you don't want it to bleed over on some of the satin finish. So it's very difficult to produce. And Rolex doesn't do it on any other watch except this one you see right here, which I think really looks fantastic. And probably, I would assume you guys think it looks great as well. And sorry, actually, one more thing. It also makes it look skinnier when you look at it profile-wise. I think I forgot to mention the height of this. Okay, so from 6 to 12, it's 60 millimeters. Now, when you turn it on its side and you want to see the height, it's 23 millimeters. That is gigantic. I don't know of any other watch that is 23 millimeters. Now, to give you some reference, the Deep Sea itself, that is 17 millimeters, which is already huge. The Submariner is much, much thinner. I think somewhere in the range of 12 millimeters, 12 and a half, no more than 13 millimeters. So this one being 23 millimeters is insanely huge. The crystal is almost the same thickness as the Submariner itself. It's very, very large. Okay, finally, let's talk a bit about the dial. The dial is actually a very standard dial. I'm kind of surprised I didn't see Rolex, do something to make the dial a bit larger, considering how large this watch is. The dial looks more or less the same size as a Deep Sea. Not much bigger, any bigger at all, actually. I don't have one here to compare it to, but when I look at the dial, it looks about the same size as a 44 Deep Sea. But one of the notable things that I could say about the dial is that it's got a very large luminescence. And let me shine some light at that. When you shine light at it, the shine becomes this very beautiful blue, which is very easy to see underwater. And the shape is very easy to recognize as well. It's just a simple circle, rectangle, triangle. Super simple stuff that you could see easily in the water so you don't get disoriented because you might not know which direction is, where zero is. And well, it's a triangle, right? Easy to see. Okay, what else can I say? Do you notice that there is also no date? Because this watch is designed to be going down to far depths, not really used to check the date. I guess you don't need to know what the date is. You're only going down to the Mariana Trench once for a few hours and then you're coming back up, so you don't really need to know when the date has changed. Okay, so that's what it is. Okay, now let's move on to the bezel. The bezel is made of a cerachrom bezel insert with black ceramic. Basically a black ceramic bezel. Interestingly, the bezel has a plating or mixed with platinum. Yeah, the numerals and graduations, these numbers right here, are actually coated in platinum. So yeah, that's pretty interesting. I'm sure there's some good reason for them to do that. Maybe it's just a look thing. I'm not surely sure, but wow, just putting platinum in it. Oh, did I mention in the dial those hour markers? Those hour markers, the center is luminescent, but they did make it out of white gold, which is incredible. And you might wonder, why would you want to make the inside of it white gold? Waste some gold. But they do that anyways because they're Rolex. Okay, so that's that. I guess since we're looking back at the dial, I guess I forgot to mention that if you look at the bottom where it says ring lock system, now you might wonder what that is. I actually looked it up. It's a patent that Rolex uses to make sure that the watch does not have to be even thicker because it's at 23 millimeters. It would actually have even been thicker if they didn't use that patented ring lock system. And I read the patent, well, a part of it, the important part, and it's kind of hard to understand. But basically, the crystal pushes on this ring lock system that goes on the inside of the case, which distributes the weight onto the ring lock system instead of the case, allowing the watch to have not been so thick because the pressure is distributed onto the ring lock instead of the case. The case is already thick. It's 23 millimeters from top to bottom. Without that ring lock system, it could have easily been 30 or 40, which would be completely unwearable. So at least at 23 millimeters, it's wearable, which is in part due to this ring lock system. And this top part that says original gas escape valve, they've been doing this helium escape thing on the side here. That's what you see this side circle thing is. They've been doing that for quite some time, and it's all these Rolex patents. They figured out how to do this, and so they probably put that in the watch. Makes sense, right? Okay, back to the bezel. I did forget to mention that on the bezel, it's not bidirectional. Sorry, it's unidirectional. Duh. Because the bezel is used to calculate elapsed time. And obviously, you don't want to think you have more time than you actually do. So when you turn it, it's unidirectional, meaning it only goes in one direction. That way, you never think you have more time in the water than you actually do. Because some people might not use it to go down to the Mariana Trench. They might just use it for diving, which most of us normal people would do. Put it on a wetsuit, put a wetsuit on, put this on, and set the timer, which is the bezel. And so therefore, it needs to be unidirectional. Okay, so that's the bezel. I talked to you about the case a lot. I talked to you about the dial a lot. Let's talk about the movement here. Now, the movement. I actually looked this up because I was wondering. It's a caliber 3230, and that caliber is actually the same caliber movement that is in the Oyster Perpetual, which is a very, very base model. And I looked it up because I thought, you know what, I wonder if they're using that same movement because it would make sense for Rolex to use the same movement as they do with just the time-only watches. I mean, why develop a new movement for that? So just use the same one, and actually they do, and it's a perfectly good movement. They've been using it and it works great, so why not just use it? It's precise to plus or minus 2 seconds a day, it has a power reserve of 70 hours, and it's a bunch of other cool stuff. You can't really see it because it's hidden behind this gigantic watch, but it's a very good movement. And there's really no reason to change my opinion. My opinion and everybody else's, so that's the movement. Now, the bracelet is also titanium. In fact, the entire watch is titanium. Now, Rolex calls it RLX Titanium. I guess that stands for Rolex Titanium, but basically it's titanium, and it's the Oyster Bracelet. Now, let me bring your attention to the clasp. The clasp is pretty interesting. It's a folding Oyster lock safety clasp with a Rolex glide lock extension system and a flip lock extension link. Okay, what does all that mean? Now, let me show you. When I open up the bracelet, there's a safety lock. Safety clasp was the first thing. You pop that open, it allows it to open. Now, let's say you're wearing a 7mm wetsuit, which probably most people that are buying this watch are. They'll be using it for diving. And, well, they'll have a wetsuit on underneath. They're going to be wearing this large wetsuit underneath. Well, you need to fit this watch around it, so what do? You open it up. First, you open up the safety clasp, which opens the buckle. Then you pull on the center here, and that allows you to pull out the bracelet. That's called the Rolex Glide Lock extension. Now, practically speaking, you could just use that yourself if your hand expands when it's cold or hot. But if you had to use it when you're diving, you could also do that. Now, if you're diving, the wetsuit is going to add 7mm on each side, which is very large. So it comes with this flip lock extension. If I pop it open, it goes like this, and it really allows it to be fitted around your wetsuit. So it has both of them. Okay, and that's the bracelet. So I pretty much talked to you about everything here. So, you know what? Let's wrap this up. Now, look, if you do want to buy this watch, go to jazztime.com or click the link in the description below. That's why I'm sitting here making this video for you. So go to the website, jazztime.com, and buy it. Don't just watch our video and buy it somewhere else, okay? All right, so here are my thoughts. I am 200 pounds, 6 feet tall, and I'm going to try this on my wrist. Now, surprisingly, it doesn't look as big as I thought it would be. When I first heard it was 50mm, I was like, oh my god, I should take off my shoes and put this around my foot or wear it on my pant leg on my thigh. But actually, it's not that bad. I could actually wear this. I'm not joking. I'm not going to wear it with a suit, but I would certainly wear this. It's not that big. Now, who would I suggest this for? I would suggest this for, one, divers, people who are probably going to dive. If you want to wear an expensive watch while you're diving, this would be it. That would be the main group of people. Now, what would I think if you were going to practically wear this? I think people would practically wear this who are going to be 250 pounds or more, because this is a very big watch. I could say if you're over 200 pounds and you want to wear a big watch, okay, fine. But there's other options of deep sea. But if you're weighing 250 pounds or more, I think that this is a watch that you should definitely consider, because there's really not a lot of other watches that are going to be in this size. And there's plenty of guys that are and there's plenty of people that are 250 pounds or more. So if you're 200 pounds or more, I would say the Deepsea is probably more of a good choice for you. If you are much larger, then I would suggest the Deepsea Challenge. Now, let's say if you're between 150 and 200 pounds, you can go with the Sea Dweller. And maybe if you're even less than that, you can go with the Submariner. But the Submariner can go all the way up to 200 pounds. But anyways, those are my thoughts. It's a very nice watch. It is very big, and it's for those guys who are bigger. So if you want to buy this watch, please go to jazztime.com.
If you want to find out more about the watch you just saw in the video, you can just click below on Show More to see the full description. Then you can check the link next to Model as seen in video, click on it, and you will get to the proper page where you can see all the details. If you're watching on a mobile phone, you have to click on the arrow down on the right hand side below the video to see the full description. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up. If you would like to share this video with your friends, you can use the share button below and share it on any platform you like. If you have questions, constructive feedback, want to tell us about some mistakes or misspeaks, just write a comment below. If you want to see more videos like this, you should subscribe to our channel and visit our channel page where you can find all the videos. And if you're interested in a specific watch brand, you can check out our playlists. If you want to check the price for a watch or want to buy one, remember at jazztime.com you always get a steep discount, so you should check the prices with us. If you want to know the price for a specific watch, just go to Google, type in JazzTime, plus the brand, model and the details you're interested in, and Google will find the right page for you. Thank you for watching.